So this is introduction to Omni. How many of you have taken the flag tutorial? Awesome. We're going to do the same, only with Omni, and way simpler. Like the setup will only include 2 hosts. It will be very simple. The whole idea is just to get you through the Omni tool, the command, so that you know how to use it. The big difference with Flag is a web-based tool. It's graphical. You can draw your topologies and all these things. Omni is command line only, which is very good to use if you want to script your experiment. So if you know what you do, you have your RSpec files, everything is ready to go when you want to automate it. You want to write a script that will automate the creation, renewing, all these things. Okay? So Sarah will also be giving part of the presentation and the tutorial. And there is also Chaos in the back that will be helping you if you have any problems. And when things don't work, you can blame Lee. I'm just kidding. Okay, so this is what we're going to do. We're going to first, I hope you've all done the pre-work. So first, I'm going to go over some terminology, which I'm sure if you were in the intro to Omni talk, you heard it there. If you were in the Flag tutorial, you've heard it there. If you were in the Gemini, it's the Genie terminology we'll keep hearing around the conference. I just want to make sure that we are a little bit clear when we're talking about terms. So the experimenter, that is you, and we have the Genie clearinghouses, and where you get your Genie account. So when we say, you should get your Genie account, that means go to a place, it's a clearinghouse, you get your account there, it's usually a username and a password, and that will give you a user certificate, right? And then you heard people talking about slices. Slices is just an empty container where you can put your resources in, right? It's just a fictional notion that we have so that you can group all the resources of one experiment together, and it's easy for us to track down what resources, and if something goes wrong, it's easier for us to, like when all the resources are grouped in one notion. Now, where do you get the slice? You get it from something that's called the slice authority. You present your user credential that you got from the clearinghouse, and you say, can I please have a Genie slice? That's so that I can start putting resources inside that. Okay, and we can have, now the thing that actually has resources in them, whether it's compute or network resources, they're called slivers. So, and the slivers are given by aggregate manager. So an aggregate manager is nothing else but a server that manages actual resources, hosts, VMs, network, OpenFlow, whatever, wireless, WiMAX, all these things are managed by a server that we call aggregate manager. And you present your slice credential, which you got from the slice authority, right? When you create a slice, you get back a slice credential, and you go to an aggregate manager, you present your slice credential, and you say, can I please have 2 VMs? Can I please have 2 wireless nodes? Whatever you need, right? And your slice can create slivers from multiple different aggregate managers, okay? Now, sometimes you want these different slivers to talk to each other. This, in Genie terminology, we call it stitching. It's still not a completely solved problem, and there was a session earlier today that they talked about stitching between AMs. Some AMs can talk to each other, some cannot. But you'll also hear this term stitching. So for this tutorial, we'll keep it simple. And the main reason is if you know how to go through this tutorial, then you're perfectly capable of doing any complex experiment you want using Omni. You just have to run the same commands over and over again in different AMs, right? There's nothing more complicated than that. So the whole idea is to do a very simple experiment so that we'll go through all the different steps of Omni. And then, you can go ahead and create your own experiments. Our clearinghouse is going to be Emulab. That is the place where it issues the user certificate. Our slice authority is pgenegplab.com. The experimenter is you, as we said before. And then for aggregate, we're going to use ProtoGenie. We're going to use VMs in ProtoGenie. And that's it. Now, I just wanted to put a slide there and explain these things because most of the experimenters, and especially new people that come in Genie, get extremely confused. We tell them, type your password, and they're like, which of the 10 passwords I have? Like, what is a passphrase? Like, you have a lot of different cryptographical material that you handle, and sometimes it's confusing. So when we say Genie account, most of the times we mean the one where you have with the web UI. Either you go to emulab.net or you go to pgini@bbn.com. The information you put there in the pop-up that has username and password, that is your Genie account. And that's more or less the only time where you're using a password in Genie, right? To log into your Genie account. When you log in, there is something we call Genie certificate. It's an SSL cert. And that is something you can download from the web UI of your Genie account. And it's created by the clearinghouse, it's given to you, and then you can use this. You can either download it in your own machine if you're using Omni, or if it's FLAC, it will automatically download it from the clearinghouse for you. Now, you will also hear many times the term Genie credentials. Many times use the word Genie credential to refer to the Genie account and the passphrase and certificates as a whole. And other people, and especially people in software, when they talk about Genie credentials, they talk about a very specific thing that specifies what permissions you have. So a user credential is something you take and you present, for example, to the slice authority, and the slice authority says, okay, you're a user that can create slices. So here is a slice. Oh, you're a user that cannot create a slice, so I'm sorry, right? So there's two different ways we're using Genie credential in Genie. So be careful, like you understand which one people are talking about. Then we have Genie keys. In Genie, when you get compute resources, the way that you log into them is with the SSH keys. So you have there's a private public pair. I don't want to be generic, but I think up to my knowledge, there is no resource right now that require a password. So if you're trying to log into a Genie resource after you reserve it and you get a password, something usually went wrong. Something is not, your key hasn't been read, the resource is not ready, there is something wrong. So when we talk about Genie keys, it's just the SSH keys that you will use to log into resources. You can use your own if you already have some keys that you're using, or you can let Genie create some for you, right? Now, again, password is the one that corresponds to your Genie account, and where we talk about passphrases, we're talking about things like either for your SSH private key or for your SSL cert that are protected using a passphrase. Now, if you let Genie create your SSH key, then the passphrase for your certificate and the passphrase for your key will be the same. If you uploaded your own key, then these two things won't match, right? And again, I know it might be a bit confusing which one to use when, but if you're trying to reserve resources using Omni or FLAC, these tools only care about the passphrase of your cert. If you're trying to log into resources, then is where your SSH key is being used, and then is where you use your SSH key passphrase. I mean, as long as you start using them, this thing will become more clear. But if you're still confused, just feel free to ask us questions. Okay, and today, as I said, we're going to use Omni, and Sarah is going to talk to describe a little bit what Omni is, since she's part of the software group and responsible for writing Omni.
Oh, just a second. All right, I'm Sarah, and so basically Omni is a command line tool. As Nikki says, it serves exactly the same purpose and function as FLAC, except it's a command line version. The reason they're the same is because they both use something called the Genie AM API, that's the Aggregate Manager API, and it's basically just a common language for a common way of requesting resources from different aggregates. Omni is written in Python, and as any good command line tool can be, it's pretty easy to script in Python, which is the feature I use all the time. And you can use any standard Genie account, the Proto Genie Planet Lab, or if you become an alpha user for the Genie portal, you could use one of those credentials because they're all the same format. And then you can use this to reserve resources at any aggregate that supports the AM API. And so that's Proto Genie and Planet Lab, OpenFlow resources, and then the InstaGenie and ExoGenie racks. And there's a special wiki page which is on there, which has lots of information about Omni. So you can check that out. All right, so the workflow is pretty straightforward. if I'm getting started, the first thing I do is I go run a command called get version. We'll show you how to run the commands in a second, but we just wanted you to know what each of these commands are doing. So I run get version at an aggregate, and it gives me back some basic information: what version of the API am I running, various things like that. And basically, I always start with that because it's the equivalent of pinging something. It's basic: is the aggregate up? Am I configured properly? Is everything on and all the lights are blinking? Okay, and then you have to create a slice. The slice creation commands are technically not part of the AM API, but that's the portion that Nikki was talking about, where you go and you get a slice credential, which is that container in which you can put resources. So you go, you create your slice. You then probably want to renew that slice because there's an expiration time on that slice. Because if you create a slice and reserve some things in it and forget about it, we don't want to keep those resources tied up forever. So you need to renew that slice to something that you think is a reasonable period of time when you'll be done with it. And you can always come back later and renew it again. And then maybe you've been away and you've come back and you want to remember what slices you have around. Omni has a command called list my slices, which will give you a list of all the slices that you have, which is really nice. Okay, so now you've got the slice, you've got a container. Then you want to reserve resources at a particular aggregate. So it's not too complicated. What you do is for each aggregate, you call a command called list resources, which gives you back a list of all of the resources that are available at that aggregate. And you then pick the resources that you want to reserve. You call create sliver, and to ask for those resources. Those resources are reserved for you. And then you can use a command called sliver status to see the state of those resources. And so you need to repeat that at each aggregate that you want to reserve resources at. Basically, you're just checking what's available, asking for resources, and then checking on the state of things. Some virtual machines or real machines can take quite a while to come up, might be 15 minutes or something in the extreme. And this is sort of how you can tell if it's really done. So you do this, and then sort of between the two green boxes here, you run your experiment and do all the hard work. And when you're done, you should be nice and release your resources so other people can use it. And so you run a command called delete sliver at each. Again, you do that at each aggregate. All right, so here you
delete sliver, do they eventually time out?
They do. That's the expiration time. Actually, so there's a command list missing from this chart. I'm sorry. There's a renew slice, which is an expiration for the entire slice, but there's also a renew sliver. So when you create the sliver, it expires in some number of days or whatever, and you can renew that so that you can keep it longer. But if you never renew it, it'll eventually get taken down and given to somebody else. So that's a good question. Yep.
For lack of a better term, is there a man page for these guys?
Oh, so there's a dash H.
Okay.
So, and that wiki page on the earlier page has instructions. Cool. All right, so the first thing you want to do, now that you have a VM that has Omni installed on it, and you need to configure it to use your account. And so there's a config file that has a lot of details in it, but it's pretty mundane. And so there's a command that you can call, which will generate your configuration for you. And what it does is it downloads your Genie certificate that Nikki described before. That's your user identity. Sorry, excuse me. You download that certificate, but then you run the script, and it generates the configuration for you. So you need your Genie certificate passphrase, which is the phrase associated with your certificate. And it's going to create SSH keys for you. And it also is going to make available some aggregate nicknames. Aggregates are usually identified by the URL, which is long and unwieldy. And we have little nicknames like Planet Lab you can access as PLC and things like that. All right, so there's a second script called clear passphrases. basically, every time you want to use your Genie certificate and SSH keys, Omni by default wants you to type in your passphrase. And let's be honest, that gets really, really onerous really, really quickly. So for this tutorial, we're going to have you run a script called clear passphrases, which is going to remove those passphrases. But you've then removed a level of security, and so you should be aware that you've done that. And so there's a bit of caution with it, but it's probably the right thing to do, definitely for a tutorial. And here's the -H option you were asking about, which shows the commands and the various options. And there's an Omni troubleshooting page, which we keep up to date all the time with any known outstanding issues. And I might have talked more than my 4 slides. Did I talk more than my 4 slides?
No.
Okay.
I'm sure if you take another tutorials, you've seen this. There are many of you accessing the same resources. The aggregate manager are not usually designed so that like 100 people will press submit at the same time. So, they're not exactly optimized for that because usually people run experiment on their own time. So, you might try, it might fail, wait a while, try again, that's okay. And we have network problems, so that might get a little bit harder. Omni is a command line tool, so copy paste is really your friend here because typos when you're trying to read it from the instructions and put it, so make sure you have the instructions open and try and copy paste. If you want to copy and paste you can copy paste between your actual laptop and the VM. If you're copying and pasting to a browser, then is Control-C and Control-V to paste. If you're within the terminal window, which we'll spend a lot of time there, it's Control-Shift-C and Control-Shift-V to paste stuff there. And okay, that's all. So now you can go and do the step number 1, which is configuring Omni. And although we don't really do it in this tutorial, I'll try and do it with you at the same time so that you can see what I'm doing. And I will need the instructions so that I make sure I'm following.
Does everybody have an account slip?
Oh, who doesn't have an account slip? Where is the, there we go.
Thank you.
Yep, are welcome. Do you have the instructions somewhere?
Yep.
Perfect.
Anybody need more instructions?
Okay, so I'm going to switch to my VM, which I'm hoping, no, it's not this one. It's this one in Axon. Okay. The password for the VM, it's in your paper slip. If you don't know it, it's GEC15 user, one word or lowercase. And I haven't done my pre-work, so I'll do that now. I'll open Firefox. And I'll open. Okay.
Nikki, we can't see.
Oh, sorry. That's, yes. Now you can. Okay. Okay, so the first step that I need to do is download my credential. Oh, that will be problematic. Now I have to look here. Anyway, so you go here, you press login, and here you put whatever you have in your paper slip. You don't need to put an email address, just put the username. It should be GPO use USR something. And then you have your password. I'm going to use my own personal credentials, so I don't take any of the accounts for you. It doesn't matter. So whenever you get your own personal account, right, you can just use your information here, download your own personal certificate, and then the rest of the tutorial is exactly the same. Nothing else changes. Okay, after you log in here, you go here on the left and says download your SSL cert, and that is the Genie certificate I've been talking about that's protected with a passphrase. So you click here. Okay, and you come here, and the first line says download your certificate and private key in PEM format. It's just, like a file format. We click there, and here is your private key, which you can all see mine and copy down, and your cert. So we're going to press Control S, and now we'll come here, delete whatever it has, and save it in your home directory under the .sssl genie_cert.pem. And all this information is in the instructions you have. So if you cannot really see, just follow the instructions. It says exactly. And then you press save. Now, we remember that Sarah said that she's using get version as a ping to make sure, like her Omni is correct and everything is going okay. So we're going to use Omni. Get version, and we're just going to do it on Planet Lab, because we're going to be using the Utah Product Genie for the rest of the tutorial, so whatever. We'll just go into Planet Lab here. And you press enter, and hopefully if everything is correct and I have internet. Oh, did it, Why?
Because you forgot the dash A.
Ah, I'm like, okay. There you go. Okay, and you get, this is our main information about the aggregate manager. You might care about them sometime. You don't care about them now. It tells you the actual URL of the aggregate manager. If the aggregate manager speaks multiple versions of the API, it can speak MAPI version 1, version 2, version 3, then it will give you the URL for every version. It will tell you what type of RSpecs it supports. Anyway, it has a lot of information that right now you don't care, but if at some point you want to find out information about the AM, you can just run this. It might tell you the version of the code it runs, stuff like that. So, how many people are here? Wow, almost everyone. Amazing. Cool, okay. So I'll continue then. Let me go back to the presentation. Okay, so everyone is here, right? We configured Omni, we ran on get version, we're good to go. So we're going to run an experiment. So if you were at this morning's talk where Vic talked and said you're never going to need to write RSpecs and see RSpecs in your life, that was kind of true, but not really. For Omni, you need to have your RSpec file. Like, you can use FLAC if you want to go and draw your topology and then save your RSpec from there. But here, you're going to need an RSpec document, whether you write it yourself, whether the tool write it for you, whatever. You're going to actually use the actual document, right? And what is an RSpec? It's a resource specification document that describes resources. And it's basically written, it's XML. Right now, there is only one RSpec version is being used, which is a awesome improvement from the first time we did the tutorial, and we had like 3 versions of Proto Genie, and we had to explain each one of those 3 versions of RSpecs. So now everyone talks Genie version 3, and in the RSpecs there are extensions. So there is a basic part of the RSpec that describe resources and links and stuff, and then everyone that needs to put stuff in the RSpec, for example, FLAC. If you open an RSpec generated by FLAC, you'll see many information. For example, it has the location on the canvas that you have your node. So when you reload your slice, it will draw them at the same place. Anything that needs to save information will have its own extension. It can be AM specific. Exogenie has their own extension. OpenFlow has their own extension to describe things. It can be clients like FLAC or other stuff, or it can be tools. For example, Gemini, that it's a monitoring, that's an instrumentation and measurement tool, have their own extension so that they can know how to instrumentize your slice. Other versions that are supported is SFA. This is mostly for Planet Lab AMs. They have a different RSpec format called SFA. There is also Proto Genie v2, which is actually another name for Genie v3, but it's the old RSpec. Okay, and this is how they look like. You've seen this before. You've seen it probably in all the tutorials you've been. It just has the top, and it describes nodes. It can describe interfaces, and hopefully you won't need to see them too often, because it's so easy to have a typo there, and then it's extremely hard to figure out what was wrong. Okay, there are three types of RSpecs. I'm sure you've heard that before. There's the advertisement RSpec that AMs use and say, this is what I have. It's a way to describe their RSpecs. Then there is the request RSpec. Sometimes you are able to, like take an advertisement RSpec, do some modification and make it a request RSpec. So they are kind of similar. They're not 100% similar. For example, advertisement RSpec have way more information. It can say what images a node support, and it can be, like a list of 10 different OS images. You have to pick only one and put in your request. And then after you send your request, then you can ask the aggregate manager to remind you what type of resources you have. So let's say you create your sliver. Next day you want to go back and say, what host did I have? So you can ask the aggregate manager and they will give you back what we call a manifest RSpec. And these are the main three different type of RSpecs that we use. And all the versions that I talked about, like SFA will also have, advertisement, request, and manifest RSpecs. Okay. Now, I don't think now anymore there are too many RSpecs because likely we only have one version, so there are only 3 RSpecs you need to worry about. But again, it's very hard to write your own RSpecs. So don't start from scratch for sure. Like, don't say, okay, I'm going to get the XML schema and start writing my own RSpec. Like, just don't do that. Either use existing RSpecs and modify them slightly. Use tools like Flag to generate RSpecs for you. And when appropriate, you can just modify existing advertisement RSpecs to make them request RSpecs for your own sake. Also, if you are writing your own RSpecs, then Lee has written an awesome tool as RSpecLint that will help you verify your RSpec. So if you're trying to do that, then you should download RSpecLint and run it through your RSpec before you submit your RSpec to the AM. Okay, so let's go to the next part of thing, which is run your experiment. So move to step 4 of your instructions, and we'll go ahead and create an experiment. So, okay, so the first thing we need to do for an experiment is create a slice. So it's omni.py, and you give it a name. The name is defined on your paper slip. The reason why we give you slice name is because the slice names are unique across all experiments, so we don't want it to collide with each other. And that's why it's good even when you run your own experiment to have something descriptive so that you don't collide. Like, don't name your slice test because probably there is already a test there. And also there are restrictions on the slice names, so try to keep it short. Don't use weird characters like asterisks and parentheses and stuff like that. And numbers are okay, letters are okay, and I wouldn't use capital letters unless you really have to. I mean, it's supported, but don't complicate it when you don't have to. So I will make my Nikki Omni. Okay, and when this returns, I can see the information, the name of my slice, and in the end here, the last line tells me when my slice expires. Okay? I mean, for this one, you don't really need to renew it, but just so that you see the command, you can renew it until, let's say this expires on the 24th of October. I'll renew it until the 25th. Okay, now I renewed my slice, and if you run experiments and you don't really remember how you named and slice or something, there is a command that is list my slices that takes as an argument your username, and will list my slices, and will give you a list of all your slices, and you see here how many slices I have. You probably will only have one because you just created it, but if you have multiple ones, then okay. Okay, now the next step is to actually go ahead and add some resources to our slice. We do that with create sliver. Okay, now I need the -a again because I need to say where. We're going to get the resources from Utah, so it will be pg Utah. Then I need to say in which slice do I want to add these resources. So for me, this is Nikki Omni. And then you can, I think you did that in the flag tutorial earlier, where you download an RSpec from the web. We'll do the same thing here. The URL is long, and I do apologize for that. If you copy and paste the URL from the instructions, please make sure you change the name in the end. Like it will be iOmni something 30. Just make sure you substitute that with your own RSpec. And I'm going to use the RSpec of 18. So I'll first go.
ESX. Experimenter.
Oh, okay, yes. I don't remember if an underscore with it does. Okay. I'll try and see it from here. Perfect.
You need me to look up the path name for you, Nikki? Should I look up the path name?
Sure, but it should be.
It's experiment, not experimenter.
Ah, there we go. Okay. Finally, okay. I mean, you should just, like copy and paste from the instructions. Just don't have the instructions up. So it's GEC15. RSpecs. And I said I'm going to use 18.
Yes, so I think the URL is cut off in the print instructions.
Okay. Yes. Okay. Yes. So look on look in the online ones, and you have the RSpec, the URL of your RSpec in your account slip as well. Oh, please, I've completely forgot about that. Please don't all create. How many people have they submitted already? Create sliver? Only one? Perfect. So, we have these balls here. Only a person that has a ball is allowed to actually do the create sliver command. So, I'll give it to someone, they will run create sliver, they would count at least until 10 after the command returns, and then they will pass it to someone else to create the sliver. You get one. Who else has pressed create sliver? Yes, they're fancy, aren't they? Who else has create sliver? No one else? Okay, who else is ready to create a sliver? And if I break a computer, I promise I won't pay it. So I'll move here so that I don't break your computers. Who else wants to create a sliver? Oh, this is very bright.
How about you can't press the ball until it stops shining?
No, that's no. And like 10 times, no, it's not enough. Who else? Sure. And I didn't break your computer. Good. Who else? Perfect. Okay, let me. Maybe we'll start. Yes. Okay, on the back. You did it already? Yeah. Thank you. Okay. It's pending? Yeah. Then you keep one. We don't want anyone else to do that. Okay, so after your command returns, which will take a while, after this return, you count at least to 10 and then pass it to someone else.
Mine's still running?
Yeah, it might take.
Well, it's been running for 3 minutes.
I'm on wired internet, so the fact that my weird. Okay.
I don't know that it succeeded.
Oh no, that's what I'm saying. You can use sliver status. If it didn't succeed, it will return an error. If everything is fine, if you didn't get an error, then it's, you know, it's going through the process. Fail. Okay, resources, if you get the resources busy while you're trying to do sliver status, wait a while and try again, right? You're done? Oh.
Is that a right? Is that a normal run, or is there an error there?
No, there's not. So the first time I ran it, you see just Gini status changing. We expect this at some point to become ready. When the
And the GPU at least 10 minutes.
And
the GPU at least 10 minutes, yeah.
Oh, because you're using real machines. Like it has to load an OS. This is VMs. It's easier. It's faster, hopefully. You see, now it says ready. So mine is, how many people says ready, sliver status? 1, yes, 2, 3, wow. 3, okay, I'll wait a little bit more. Okay, so now when I run sliver status, which I did here, if I manage to scroll up, which is challenging, but okay, you'll see that somewhere in the information here, it will give me my user information, which I just have to find them. They are already on the top or something. Anyway, somewhere within this big structure over here, it tells me what my login name is, and what is where should I log in, what is the host name, what is the port, all these things. So instead of like going to sliver status and trying to find all this information, Sarah wrote an extremely useful script using Omni scripting, and that it's ready to log in, and you run it. And the scripts you write, the awesome thing about Omni scripting is that any script you write using Omni scripting, it can take the same arguments as Omni, and it will call Omni on the back for you and parse the output and give you nicely formatted. So the same way you do, you do sliver status, you just say -a, the AM URL, then you give it again your slice name, and you press enter. And it will go call sliver status, all these resources, or whatever the aggregate needs to get your login information. I will print, and at some point, here in the end, it will give you a list of all your hosts that you have in your sliver with instructions about how to log in into them.
He doesn't like my keys.
Okay, so for those of you that doesn't like your keys, it's a new problem. We haven't figured out why. Remember, you did an SSH add in the beginning of the tutorial. Now we're going to remove all the keys. So run SSH add -D. And it should say that all identity is removed. Everyone can go ahead and do that step, even if you didn't get the error.
Oh, sorry. So it's SSH-add. Can you make your...
If I knew how, I'm pretty literate in these things. Control.
Top of the screen, right where it says terminal upper left-hand corner.
Yes.
Go up to the bar that that's on. Higher.
There.
Top of the screen, yeah. And then go over to edit. Edit. The terminal or edit?
Edit.
Try the bottom one.
Profile preferences.
And
General. If anyone knows how to make these things bigger.
Under general.
Under what? General?
Uncheck, use the system.
there you go. Yeah.
Oh, use the system. Ah, there we go. Perfect. Thank you, guys.
Put the plus sign.
There's a plus sign right in the corner for size.
Yes, Okay, let's see. Yes, better? Can you all see? Yeah. Okay, good. Okay, so this is the command you have to run. Okay, now you can just copy this command here. Control-Shift-C for copy, Control-Shift-V for paste. And I'm getting the same problem again that all of you are.
It's because you're running the meter test. Oh.
Oh, no, that shouldn't be a problem. Okay, try and log in, and if you're not successful, let me know.
I got the message, but it logged it.
I know, I have no idea what's wrong with that.
It just said agent and failure decided to keep, but I'm logged in.
Are the permissions on your key, okay?
So whatever.
Okay, I can check, but the Omni configure did that, so let me just check. I'll check now though.
Yeah.
It's a failure. It's not bug with it.
So,
So just do it.
I just got it.
Yeah.
Takes the weight off. Feels better.
That looks okay.
okay. For me, it's the opposite. I need to add it to my agent to work, whatever.
Do you want to make the new terminal big?
Okay. This is Xterm, so I'll try.
Just replace xterm the command with known terminal.
Okay.
Make
Yes.
it work.
Somebody had the same problem.
Here,
No,
I'll.
no, no, and they fixed it by closing all the external windows that were open.
Yes.
And then did the delete again, and then it worked.
I did that multiple times. It didn't work for me. Is Gterm or something, or GNOME term?
No, yeah, no hyphen terminal. I think that's what it is.
GNOME?
And hyphen terminal. Yeah. Okay, sorry.
No, don't worry. I have it somewhere. If I cannot figure it out from here, I'll have it somewhere.
You can always just manually launch known terminal and then paste the SSH.
I don't know if there's something wrong.
Instead of external, maybe.
And you want to take the ampersand out from the quotes.
It's okay. No, I don't hate computers. I don't. Yes, that was wrong. Bye.
Oh, you don't want the.
FG.
Yeah, I know.
I have never seen an ETH. I've never seen an ETH 999.
Oh, you're going. There is also an MV1 dot something, right? Yeah.
But I've never seen 99 ETH.
Okay. So after you manage to log into your hosts, how many people are here? Okay. Is anyone else still waiting for the sliver to get ready? No? Anyone is having problems with SSH? Okay, perfect. So now we'll go to the client, and we first want to see that we have connectivity. So we're going to ping the server. Okay. So hopefully you have IP connectivity with your server. You should see something like that. Okay? But Genie provides you layer 2 connection between hosts, which is what we're going to use in this tutorial, right? So the first thing we're going to do is bring down IP completely. We're going to disable IP from the data interfaces. Now be careful when you do that, because your hosts have both a control interface, which is what you use to log into the host, and they also have a data interfaces, which is the one that, you know, like your hosts talk to each other in Genie. So if you bring down the wrong interface, and now we're in a VM, so I'm not even sure we can do that, but if you have your own host, if you bring down the control interface, you lose complete access to your host, and then you cannot fix what you did. So, okay, so let's see. Okay, so the one that starts with 10.10. whatever, this is your data interface, and in order to bring down IP, we have to do okay, and then the interface name, MV11.15, and just put an IP of all zeros. Okay, so now if I do, okay, there is no IP there, and I'll do the same here.
So I think is the data interface always NV something?
No, that's just because it's a VM. If it was an actual host, this will be a normal ETH3, right? ETH2.
In the tutorial.
In the tutorial, you will all have MV, yes, some MV and some number.
So that's whatever the interface name, so your MP, whatever.
Okay, so now if I go back to my client, which is here, and I try to ping the server, I should probably time out now, right? There is no IP, there is nothing to forward my IP packets. Notice that when you talk from one machine to the other, you can just use the name. In Flag, this is the name that you name your machines, right? If you go to Flag on the top, it's in the RSpecs, this is called the client ID, which is basically whatever nickname you want to give to your hosts, how you want to name your hosts, right? So that's how we named one client and the other server. And you can access from one to the other just using their nickname. Okay, so this timed out. Okay, so now I will try to send layer 2 packets to my server. And we've installed a software in your VMs when they were created, which should be under SAR local. Okay, and you need to specify the remote host MAC. So you go back here where you did the ifconfig, you find your data interface, you find whatever was the MAC address, and you use that one. And you probably won't be able to copy and paste if you're using Xterm. So just write it down and put it on the other. Then the next argument is the data interface name of the local, so that will be of the client, not of the server. So if I go here, it's the MV11.15, right? .15. And then it's the data type. So IP, for example, is in hex 800. We're going to use our own. Okay. And of course it didn't work. Why would it? Anyway, has this worked for everyone? For anyone? Yes, it worked for people? Okay. I'll figure out why it didn't work for me, but. Oh, let's see here.
Your MAC address has.
It should be fine. I just copy and paste, so that shouldn't be wrong. Let me rerun the server. SAR local ping. Okay. Work. Okay. So when you do that, you're going to see here, basically it's a custom software. It's very simple. It will send an addition puzzle to the server, and the server will reply back with the answer, right? So I asked that, and I got the reply from the server. It's a very simple software. And if you want, if you specify here in the end like a number, like 10, it will send 10 of those pings. Okay? So how many people have done the layer 2 ping? Okay. Let me know if you need help. Is your sliver ready?
Yeah,
or you still
ready.
Okay. I choose pgini.gplab.bbn.com, which is where you have your account with, and I click download. And I'm already logged in. So, it downloads my cert, and here I go and put my passphrase. This is important for people that are using Flag. Here you don't put your password of your Genie account, you put your passphrase. Okay? It will take a while, but when it loads, if you do that on your computer, you should be able to see your slice with the topology and everything, because all the information is stored at the servers, not at the tools.
Which authority were you downloading from?
pgini.gplab.bbn.com. And it might be a PG1 and a PG3. Be careful, it's the plain PG in case they're there. So for those people that took the flag tutorial, this was so familiar. And here in the slices, you will see the slice that you create with Omni. It will be green, and then it will, load the topology that you have, right? So both Omni and flag are just a front end, and all the information is stored at the server. So you can use multiple tools to query the information of your slices. After you do that, then you can go ahead and delete your sliver with the command of delete sliver. And please, before you go, fill in your survey. And if you go to the instructions on the web, there is a link to the survey, so you can do it online and save paper. Or you can get a paper version from Sarah. And I hope I didn't forget. Oh, and get your own account. So if you want to use Genie and you want to try this again, but with your own credentials instead of the ones that I gave you in a paper slip, come and find me so that you can get your own account. There is instructions here about how do you do that. It should have a link with instructions about how you do that. And if it doesn't, let me know. But please make sure you delete your slivers before you go. So, did you delete it?